that mean I can
Okay.
have my, just kidding.
It's 4:38 p.m. and we have exited executive session. No actions were taken in executive session. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is calls for decision and key discussions, and the first one up is the bylaws revisions. So Shannon sent through, or I sent through as part of the pack, based on Shannon, a red line version of the bylaws. Would you like to call that up, Shannon, for discussion? And Nancy, you wrote a mail to me, and I think you meant to copy Shannon before
Yes.
asking.
And then I did. And then I finally did.
We talked about it back and forth yesterday.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nancy, for pointing out in section 5 on quorum that the legislation that was cited was incorrect. Hold on here. Let me see if I can.
A transposing of a number.
Yeah, hold on here.
Wow, way to go, Nancy.
Well, I only found it because I went looking for it.
Are you able to see it? So it's 3061 instead of 3601.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah. And Nancy and I were also discussing what that legislation means as it's written. I think I'm pretty clear that it's pretty much the same as what we have embedded now, that we need more than 50% of the municipalities, essentially, to that are signed up as members of Maple Broadband in order to have quorum.
Is that how it works for the Regional Planning Commission?
Yes.
I was just thinking about, so maybe it's a moot point because maybe we'll have delegates from every town. But if we go forward with, say, 2 towns that we've tried to get delegates from, we haven't gotten delegates, we have 20 towns, but we have 18 delegates. Is a quorum 11 or is it 9? Or is it 11 or 10?
It's 11.
It's 11.
And I know that you think that, but I can't, it's hard for me to believe that that's true, but I don't know. Do you have an opinion on that because of the way the Regional Planning Commission works?
Are you asking me, Nancy?
Yeah.
So we wrote our bylaws specifically to exclude vacant seats, but I'm not sure that you all can because there's a different statute that governs us.
Okay. Well, so, I mean, it's the bylaws as written or as amended here are fine because it references the statute, not what the statute actually says, not the language of the statute. But I still think it's worth double checking that with the Secretary of State, I guess. I'm in another conversation with the Secretary of State about a school matter, but
yeah, well, feel free. I mean, if you get an opinion that because I would agree, the fewer people we need for quorum, the better. If you're able to get them to say that in writing, then I know some other CUDs that would love to have that opinion.
Yeah.
So
okay,
please do.
Good. Well, then, if they ever call me back, there's no reason that the Secretary of State is mad at me right now. So maybe I'll get a call back soon.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So other than that, these are pretty much all the changes we talked about before.
Yeah. It all looked fine to me.
Okay. So we need to pass this out from here in order to include this in the board pack for the next governing board meeting. So if you guys are comfortable, we can run a vote on this now. Straw poll, everyone comfortable? Nod your head. Okay. All right. So Shannon, would you like to run it?
Yeah, I move that we recommend to the full governing board the bylaws changes as presented.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, I think you're seconding Shannon's motion.
That's fine. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye or throwing up a hand. There we go.
Great. Thank you for that.
I can send you back this version, Ellie, because we've made that little change, just to make it easier.
Thank you. Great.
And I'll keep it in the red line version so that the governing board can see that.
Yes, yes.
All right, progress. I also wanted to note, by the way, that we are continuing with the bylaws actually say we should review the bylaws annually, and we've been doing a good job of that. And you can stop sharing your screen, Shannon.
Sorry.
No worries.
There we go. Back to us.
Okay. All right, so next up is conflict of interest and personnel policy. Also over to you.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. Hold on, let me see. So Steve and I were going back and forth and back and forth, and in the bylaws we had it basically says that we will have a policy, and then we were citing state legislation, and that essentially is more with ethics than it is a conflict of interest policy. And then Ellie kindly pointed out, we have one. And I'm like, oh yeah, we do. And hold on, let me see if I can pull that up.
Nancy might have lost power. Oh, there she is. Hallelujah. Welcome back, Nancy. You're muted.
So at any rate, I looked at, I had presented one as a possible, which is based on the Addison County Regional Planning Commission's conflict of interest policy. What this is kind of similar. I'm not sure where this came from, but there are a couple of items that we probably don't need because it talks about a quasi judicial body, so it might have come from a select board or a city council. But other than that, it's pretty comprehensive and pretty complete. So we've apparently we adopted this at some point. So for now, I think it's probably fine as is. And we can go through and maybe make some recommendations on pulling out some of the things that we don't need, like the quasi judicial body part, because we are not that.
Are not. I had a question on that, Shannon. It was some time ago, and I forget if it was Maple, in the context of Maple River CUDA, that we talked about conflicts of interest. But one of the things that is often in conflicts of interest policy is to have an annual disclosure of your other roles in order to generate awareness of potential conflicts. Because where you often get tripped up is where someone has a conflict that other members aren't aware of, and then they don't disclose it in order to recuse themselves. So is that currently in our policy? Because we operationally have not been collecting that.
There's Article 5, which says, well, it's right here. Oh, I'm not sharing, am I?
No.
Hold on.
I told you to stop, and you stopped.
It's right here. A district official who has reason to believe that he or she has a conflict of interest, blah, 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 blah. So it's not really like at the beginning of the year, but it's if something comes up on the agenda tonight that you then say, oh, I think I may have a conflict. And so that's the disclosure. But we're not asking for something like a year in advance.
So if my brother takes up a job at a construction firm, there's nothing requiring me to disclose that in writing. You're just relying on my goodwill to relay the fact that I have a conflict of interest.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's something for consideration and discussion. There's pros and cons. I mean, there is administrative overhead to collecting it, but and most of our major procurements are in the past or are actually happening now. So, but yeah, I just wanted to raise that one for consideration.
Yeah. Adam, I know a few years ago we wrote up a policy that had us on regional planning to sign off and submit, but I don't think we've been diligent in doing that.
We haven't, honestly, because you get about 50% of people signing off on the first one, and then you get another 20% on your next 2 or 3 asks. And it's just, it's not, it sounds good, but it's more bureaucratic time than it is effort. I mean, we could, especially with people being remote, tracking them all down and getting all the signatures from everyone is a
Problematic.
full-time job. Problematic.
You know, it might be something that should be considered for a more limited group who are more actively engaged, like, say, the executive committee and ex officio members, because I feel like we would all do it. And at the end of the day, most of the major recommendations are coming past us anyway. So,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, that was going to be my question as to who is this going to be distributed to? Was it going to be the governing board and or the executive board / paid positions? Because the governing board just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to have them sign off on this per se. And I'm just going to make this plug. I don't know if there's any way in which to make these types of documents in plain language, but trying to figure out what it is I'm actually supposed to do when I'm supposed to do it is torture.
Okay.
I mean, I know it's legally binding,
yeah,
but the amount of legal ease in the way it's set up is so convoluted that, and I work in bureaucracy and with lawyers, that if we were to hand this over to a governing board, it feels like we're asking them to sign their life and their legal rights away without any knowledge of even understanding that.
Understood. I have a, when I forgot that this was in place, I was working on a draft that was similar to this, but much more simpler to understand. So I may go back to that one and I mean, I compared them over this weekend and was like, oh, but this one's already in force. It covers all the points and then some. Let's just leave it alone. But your point is well taken. So maybe I'll go back through and make sure that they mesh and go for the simpler one. And then we can put that out for consideration.
Well,
but
and I'm not a proponent for AI in most cases. And that's all I'm going to say.
Yep.
But taking a document like this and throwing it into ChatGPT and asking it to, rewrite in plain language can be really effective, at least providing a foundation on which to then maybe expand or reintroduce specific legal terms.
Yeah, I'll come up with something simpler that people can review and understand.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move us on to the next item in the agenda, which is 7C, Drop Design Engineering. So what this is I would like to make a request that the executive committee authorize up to $250,000 in additional work to JSI to engineer drops to addresses in areas that were designed by Vantage Point, but they never actually designed the drops. And I'll explain why. There's 2 reasons why. Number one, as you know, we have the affordable drop program going on right now. And for people that are already in the pipeline, where WCVT has been out to the address and has scouted it and has identified if a conduit's required, how long the conduit's required, those are easy if they've already been out there. But this is a limited period of time program. And I am concerned, and they were a little bit concerned when I spoke with them, that especially as we start to get into the spring and we're going to be really turning up the tap in terms of the marketing outreach around this, if there are a lot of addresses that need to be scouted, that could create a bottleneck in terms of their resources because they only have so many bodies and so much manpower. And also, we are aware that having the scouts need to happen as a preliminary step before anyone runs a drop and anyone does an installation adds 1 to 2 weeks usually to the wait time that customers have before they get service, which is not great. The other thing, as you're aware, is that we have ARPA money that needs to get spent by the end of this year. And part of the homework I'm doing is thinking about eligible uses of those funds and recommendations about where to spend it. And this one to me seemed like a really good thing to spend some of that money on, because it's going to save Waitsfield time. It's going to save us. It's going to be able to help us get installations done. It's going to de-risk the long drop program. And we have money that's, I mean, it's not that there aren't other things we could be spending this money on, but for the remaining amount in the construction grants, there are fairly limited uses of those funds, because we can't build to addresses that weren't allowed under the construction grant, and we can't build to addresses that are part of BEAD for obvious reasons. So, right? So, I mean,
Right.
there are a couple of other things, but this is the downside of having been good stewards of the funds, is that we want to make sure we don't give any back. So, to me, a good thing to do, because you guys can authorize up to 250,000, or maybe 249,999, and then if we seem like we need more, we can either come back to you guys or to take to the full governing board. But this will be enough that they can at least get started. And then when they have resources that are here, or when we get addresses from affordable drop program inquiries that are not pre-scouted, we'll put those at the top of the list, so those are getting sorted first. There's also, so basically that was my thinking, and hence the reason behind the proposal. And it's several months of work, because there's, according to me, we don't need to scout addresses that Vantage Point designed as being 100% aerial, because according to the GIS analysis we did before, they're 97 to 98% accurate with those. And if on the odd occasion Waitsfield gets there and thinks it's aerial and has to scout it, I mean, that's the exception rather than the rule. And the ones that are left, the time varies, but the Vantage Point estimate was between about 240 and 275,000. So I thought, let's authorize up to 250,000, get them on it as soon as we can get a body there, and then we'll see what the actual total comes up to. That's the proposal.
And Ellie, are they doing a physical scout, or are they doing a GI? They're doing a physical scout.
They're doing physical scout, and that was the problem with what Vantage Point did is they designed all the drops, but they only did physical fielding of the main line, and so they essentially did a desktop design of the drops, and it didn't cost us any more or any less. It was included in their per foot fee, and it's generally useful. I mean, it's useful to me, at least, in terms of understanding, is this aerial or is this not, and we have been able to use it some, but it's not like we didn't waste any money doing this, at least according to what Cole told me, because I at one point said, well, because Waitsfield isn't using them, are we paying extra for them, and could we not? And he said, no, it's included in the per foot fee. So it's not like we're paying again for something we've already paid for, but we're doing something that wasn't done to begin with. And also, very important, because JSI has worked so closely with WCBT, they understand WCBT's requirements for these, so they're looking at it in the same way that WCBT would, and WCBT trusts them, and they're not going to go and say, thank you for paying for this, but we're going to go do scouts again anyway. And they're actually very excited by the possibility of us going and getting the ones that haven't been scouted and that are designed as buried, actually designed.
Personally, anything we can do that could be proactive to keep this process moving forward, and generally such a short construction season, I see as being a long-term benefit.
Yep. Is that a motion? Would you like to move to authorize up to $249,999 of additional spending from JSI for this purpose?
I will make a motion to approve the authorization of up to $24,999,999.
No, one
Right.
fewer.
Correct.
0.9.
$249,999 to JSI for additional scouting work.
I'll second.
Okay, friendly amendment is just to clarify, this is engineering of the drops to addresses that have a buried components that have not been previously scouted.
And using ARPA funds.
Using ARPA funds, yes. For the purposes of minutes, we'll get down what this is. Okay. But we all agree. All right, any further discussion? All in favor? All right, thank you guys. Okay, Moving on to section 8, and I'll get through these as quickly as we can, or as you guys wish to discuss, because we are at the originally scheduled time. So the Finance Committee has still not met. We are still planning to meet with them when we have something to meet about, which moves us into the 2025 audit. And Lynn, would you like to give the update there?
So the good news is Bonnie has everything she needs from us. And she is pretty close to drafting the first version of the audited report. And there's one issue that Bonnie is working through. And we talked to her about that. I think it was last Thursday, and she knew she wasn't going to be able to kind of get back and wrap it up by last week, but it's on her plate this week. So I think the good news is this audit appears to be, I'm knocking on wood here, going more smoothly than the other two. And I think we're on schedule for getting a draft of the audited report. We're on the schedule we set up with Bonnie. So not much else to report here other than that.
Great.
And Ellie and Darlene did an amazing job pulling a lot of information for Bonnie, because Bonnie she said, you wanted the schedule and I'm keeping you on it. So anyway.
She did. She did say that.
Tight ship. So anyway, we hope to have something to report at the next executive committee meeting. And once we have a draft, we will set up a meeting with the finance committee to review the draft together.
Yep.
And then just one quick question, Ellie and Lynn, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've got so many puzzle pieces floating around. The intent is to put out to bid for the audit for 2026.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when is that bid going out? And is Bonnie aware of it?
I don't know if Bonnie is aware of it. We'll invite Bonnie to bid, obviously. And I haven't talked to Bonnie about it. And so, yeah, I don't know if Bonnie knows about it. And I've sent Ellie some text, and so, we needed to put the audit first and foremost. And what I'm hoping is in the next couple of weeks, especially before we bring the finance committee together, that we have a draft ready to run by them as well.
Yep, that was exactly my thinking. And speaking, is there anything else in the audit? Because that's a perfect lead into my next thing, which is that I'm in RFP mode right now. So there's, I just issued earlier today, Steve did a huge amount of work helping me with this. And then I had a meeting with WCVT, one on Thursday and then one this morning, and got some materials from them to include in the final bid package, but issued just earlier today an RFP for conduit installation for the long drop program. So that was issued today. And one thing I wanted to say is part of the timetable for this, and then the other one, which is not yet out, but I'll be getting that out in the next day or so, is around the services for the affordable drop program. So all of customer coordination, project management, follow-ups, all of that. A lot of being on the phone with customers. We have on the timetable for both of these a bid opening on the 13th of April. That right? No. Yes, it's the 13th of April. So we normally meet, is it the second and fourth weeks? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a bid opening on the 13th, and then we are intending to make awards on the 20th, which is off cycle. So we'd have meetings on the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. And so the 20th, I would probably schedule as a 45-minute meeting, and we would send the bid leveling and recommendations ahead of time. But we would just, in order to keep on schedule, wanted to double check that you guys were available to approve. Because that wasn't on I think it was part of the anticipated timetable, but we can always take more time with the selection if we need to. Does that work for everyone?
Can you repeat those dates again?
So that we normally have executive committee on the 13th and 27th, which is the 2nd and 4th. And so I'm suggesting we also have a meeting on the 20th for 45 minutes to make our awards for the 2 affordable drop. You not make that?
I can, are we starting at 3:30?
Is there a different time you'd like?
No, if I can, at 3:30, short and sweet, I can make it happen.
All right. How about if we plan on 3:30 to 4, because they're basically the whole agenda is to come in, approve these 2, which we will have sent out the recommendations for ahead of time, and then take votes. And hopefully it'll be straightforward and not a lot of discussion. But if there's a short list, it might be longer. So I'll make that half an hour. Does that sound good?
And just to clarify, this is on the 20th, not on the 13th.
This is on the 20th.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
But
That
we
I
would
can
still
make.
be meeting on the 13th and the 27th.
Yes.
I won't be available on the 13th.
Okay, that's fine. That's just the bid opening.
Well, me either. So I don't know what
Well-
that means for quorum.
Well, that means that sign needs to come. Or we just don't take any decisions on the 13th, because we don't need quorum to do a public opening. We just need a quorum if we're going to be approving minutes or anything. So we'll see when we do the agenda for that. Okay. All right, that's that. Where's my agenda? Okay, so affordability programs. Other than that, I did not get a chance before this meeting to check the updates for LEAF, but that's on my list of things to do because today is the drop dead date. There's not been a lot of activity for LEAF since the initial launch. We did put some ads in the Addison Independent, and we're going to be continuing with that and engaging with CVOEO on the outreach. But I think we were at 8 last month, and we're probably still going to be about 8, 9 now. And then we have had more people on the affordable drop program, including there were actually a number that came in over the weekend. I'm not sure what or why, but possibly it was last Thursday's Addison Independent. But don't know. Haven't traced back to see if we can identify the origin, but more interest is a good thing.
Maybe everybody's doing their taxes.
Maybe they are. Okay, any questions on affordability programs? Okay. All right. So bead and detailed design. So on bead, we submitted last week, I think, or the week before, to the VCBB and RSM our list of anticipated permits. So we've divided our bead project area into really 4, which represents our northern island of Virgins, Ferrisburg, Moncton, New Haven, our southern area, excluding Ripton, the WCBT area, and then the area of Ripton. So those are our 4 areas. So we compiled permits, or I compiled permits for 3 of those, and WCBT compiled their anticipated permits for their area. We submitted that to the VCBB and their compliance consultants. And we'll be having
Do
a
you mean
discussion around that soon.
a list of what permits we'll need to apply for, or a list, or the actual applications?
No, a list of permits we're going to need to apply
Okay.
for. We
Yeah.
haven't done the actual applications yet, because in some cases it will be helpful to have the staking sheet that represents the detailed design to submit with the application to the town roads foreman, and not just here's a line on a map. So yeah, so that's the idea is for them to help walk us through how we actually get to the NEPA checkoff as soon as possible. Second thing is, you will recall last executive committee meeting, you guys authorized me and Steve to issue a PO for the enclosures that we awarded. So we made a determination on to whom we wish to award those enclosures. And then, of course, part of what was in the motion there is this is subject to my validation of the BEAD compliance requirements. So that led me down a whole wonderful rabbit hole of BABA certification letters. And so there's 3 different suppliers from whom we are procuring equipment. There's Clearfield and 2 smaller ones. And hilariously, all 3 of their certification letters were missing something or other that was listed as required by the NTIA package. We seem to be, the distributor was, somewhat bemused by this whole thing. And I think that we're probably very early in terms of people placing orders under BEAD, and so they're not yet seeing these things, and people are still getting their act together around what needs to be in the letters for the paperwork and what doesn't. So I did ask the distributor, the winning distributor is Graybar, by the way. I did ask them if they wished for us to issue the PO, with a note saying the payment is subject to provision of proper compliance certificates so we can at least get the orders in. They haven't come back to us yet, but the quotes are still good for several more days. And so just wanted to let you know that's going on. Speaking of Grant Jail, learning all sorts of fun compliance things.
I'm glad
Okay, and
Grant Jail is now part of your vocabulary.
exactly, Grant Jail is not part of my vocabulary. Yeah, I feel like I did something bad in a previous life to have to comply with some of these things. Anyway, so on the detailed design side, have had great continued engagement with JSI, and they are busy wrapping up the bills of material that are separating out the bead and the non-bead areas. So they expect to have those to us sometime this week, and then from there we'll be able to start working on the compiled quotation for, amongst other things, fiber optic cable. Now, one thing just for transparency, I have been hearing rumors for the last week. Literally, the first I heard of it was a week ago yesterday, so under a week, that fiber lead times are really, really long as a result, not of BEAD, not of BEAD, but of hyperscale data center build-outs that are apparently taking up all of the domestically manufactured glass that goes into the fiber optic cables. So what I've heard is if you need BABA cable, you're waiting a year. If you don't need BABA cable, you can get it tomorrow. So it's probably likely that the BEAD program will have a waiver for this because there are waivers for other things where the lead time is excessive. That said, I spoke with the VCB earlier today, and I still need to double check all of the guidance to make sure that I'm not out over my skis here. But my biggest concern wasn't BEAD so much as ARPA, because we have ARPA money needs to get spent this year, and ARPA miles, like town funding and town match that we want to spend this year. And I didn't realize we'd be waiting a year for fiber, BABA fiber, or otherwise I would have accelerated this to the degree possible and gotten some sort of estimated order in already. So the good news is that our ARPA funding, all of it, it's the source of it is state and local fiscal recovery. And if you can demonstrate, so that is a domestic preference, that is not a BABA requirement. So if we go through the steps of putting out a bid, discovering it's a year lead time on cable, we can then turn around for the ARPA builds, and we don't need to procure domestically for that. So that's my understanding. So just a heads up that when it comes to the cable procurement, we're going to be going through a process of compiling everything, putting it out together, and saying into the two separate buckets, the bead and the non-bead, and saying we want BABA for all of it, and please tell us your lead times. Then we're going to turn around most likely and strip out the non-bead and rebid that and say domestic preference, but give us what you can give us. Nancy.
I have to go because the Secretary of State's office is on the phone.
Okay, great. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay. So that's that. That's the bead update that I have, which, yeah. Any questions on that? Good times. Okay, Vacuda and VCBB updates. So the VCBB update, I will start with that. I don't think there's much going on in Vacuda that's really worth calling to your attention this week. The VCBB update, and this actually relates to the next point as well, the 2025 construction updates. We had a kickoff call with VCBB and WCBT and Syracuse and Mission Broadband last week Friday to talk about the closeout inspection for the construction grant. We are not yet, moving to the next item, we have not yet turned the last couple of miles over into active service. That is imminent, waiting on final acceptance of all the splicing and testing results. But it's anticipated very soon. I mean, the cable's up and it's apparently all been spliced. We just need to dot the I's and cross the T's and switch it into active service officially. And so in anticipation of that, obviously want to get the construction grant wrapped up. So I had a kickoff call to talk about how to get Luckgrove, which is the VCB's contracted inspection company, the information they needed to do that, and with whom they were going to be liaising for the field visits and all of that. And then obviously part of that also is a separate parallel conversation with WCBT around getting the final as-built written records to the VCBB, which is one of our other grant compliance requirements. So we can get the final 8% or the 8% related to construction completion for the phase 2 of our construction grant. So yeah, that happened. And then I had the monthly call to VCBB earlier today where we mostly talked about fiber purchases and closeout. So that's what's going on. I think the only other thing is the VCBB is planning at their next board meeting, which is actually Monday. They are planning a revision of their policy around the development of policies. I didn't mean that for that to be funny, but that sort of came out that way. The reason being that changes to the way that they were doing things before was they had a board member that was chairing each of the policy committees, and the changes to open meeting law turns those into public meetings, which is not desirable because they actually had a legal opinion, and then Fukuda didn't believe it, so we got a separate legal opinion, and their interpretation. Both lawyers are in agreement that because the public body caused this to be a formal working group, then it is a subcommittee of the public body. So in order to not have policy developments be public meetings, they're basically going to just have staff leading it, and then staff can, VCBB staff acting as employees of the state. They don't need to be having public meetings doing what they're doing. So the staff will be running meetings and discussions. So that needs to happen first, but they're trying. The reason I'm teeing this all up is that one of the policies that they want to pass is a policy around grant recoupment and transfer of assets, which we've talked about here before, just as part of what our finance committee should be starting to think about with us is just our long-term, how do we look at sustainability and what are the early warning signs and what might we want to do if we start to be getting into hot water? Not that of course we're working for success, but we should be taking ownership for what non-success looks like and what we might do in starting those conversations. So again, not necessarily terribly urgent for us to be doing that, but you guys should be aware that this policy, because grant recoupment and transfer of assets is a pretty important policy, so you should be aware the VCBB is working on passing this. Okay, that's what I have there. 2025 construction updates. Not too much more to say there. Hopefully we'll get those done soon, and then the rest of what needs to happen will all be part of what we'll be putting to bid next month. Parking lot. Is there anything in the parking lot that anyone wants to talk about? Okay.
Ellie, I have a question actually. It's the overall operating agreement with Waitsfield Champlain Valley Telecom.
Yes.
How badly has this new kerfuffle messed that up?
It's unrelated.
Okay. Okay. Are you still close to an agreement in principle?
Yep, we are. I've been focused on other items, mostly related to getting the long drop done and getting beads spun up.
Okay.
But I know I keep saying that. Wish there's more hours in the day. Or more days in the week, maybe.
Careful what you wish for, Ellie.
Well, I could also
exactly.
sleep in those hours.
There is that.
There is that. Okay. Anything else on the parking lot? Okay. Does anyone have any other business they want to raise?
One quick question is whether or not what your communications with our media company has been based on some of the feedback you received for developing materials and like front porch forum stuff.
I relayed all of the points from the last governing board off to London Middlebury, and they said they've added it all to their work plan. And I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but it's in my to-do list. And then
Yep.
we have a bi-weekly call, and the next one is tomorrow. So
Great.
I will be checking in on those tomorrow. So I'm sorry I don't have a good update today.
No, I didn't need a good update. I just wanted to make sure that those communications were happening so that they could start incorporating those ideas into their, I'll say, strategic planning.
Yes, no, they were definitely aware of them. I sent them off either that night or the next morning,
Lovely.
and they've
Thank
acknowledged
you.
them. Okay, so if there's no other business, I think we can move to adjourn, and our next meeting then is the 13th of April, the regularly scheduled time.
Which as you know, I will not be there. And on the 14th, I will not be there, nor will the delegate from Ripton. We're both committed.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll see
Good
you all
night.
later. Thank you for staying late. Good night.